remember the Rebbe came, it was like, you see, it was like this. So the first 4 weeks, everybody loved him, the great rabbis, but 5 weeks later, it was already like, people say we have to, like, for instance, I was going to another school, and the principal walked in and says, I forbid any contact with Lubavitch Rebbe because he is so bad, and everybody was right away against him, Can you imagine a person is paralyzed, and he's paralyzed because he was beaten up in Russia so much. He's coming here and he says to the people, we got to do something for our young people. That's all he said, But it was really like the strangest thing in the world. The moment that someone wants to do something, everybody's against. Like, I remember when we were little, my brother and I, and so the Rebbe couldn't be up, he was paralyzed. But he had one chassid with him. Rabbi Shlomo was like the Rebbe's right-hand man, A person who was also in Siberia for 10 years. Somehow, miraculously, the Rebbe got him out. So he was with the Rebbe, he was like the Rebbe's like right-hand man, So, I knew there's such a thing as teaching, but I didn't know there's such a thing as sitting up all night, Maybe saying nothing, maybe telling one story, Just sitting. I remember my brother and I, the first night, was sitting out with Rabbi Shmuel, like... Never forget it, just sitting at the table. That time there weren't so many people yet. I think maybe 12 people. It was kids, because old people didn't come. Must have been maybe 13, 14, 15, 16. And Rabbi Shmuel was sitting so holy, just unreal. So he was explaining us, the Rebbe's soul is from another world, really is from another world. There's a private soul, and there's like a world soul, I have a little soul, you have a little soul. And then there's a world soul, it's not even a private person. It's absolutely out of anything private, He absolutely has no ego, it's not him, He really is just completely given to the world. But the Rebbe, today, he told us a tremendous story. When the Rebbe was 14 years old, so, in Russia, during the time of the Tsar, today Russia is different, but then they always wanted to drive out the Jews from the little cities, It was so bad, in the big cities the Jews couldn't find a job, it was very hard. And the little cities, they could like sell a little whiskey or a little tea, have a little grocery store maybe. But if they have to leave the little cities, then to just die from hunger, And the Russian government did it every few years. It came out with a new decree, Anyway, so there was in a certain part of Russia, I don't know which part, the governor of that, of that state in Russia, I don't know how many states are in Russia, I think more than America, I don't know, 700 states or something. Anyway, in one state, this governor, he said that all the Jews, he'll drive out all the Jews from the little cities. And he said like this, any Jew who will dare come to talk to him about it, that he should not do it, he will shoot him personally. And he meant it. So people were afraid to talk to him about it. But someone has to do it. And there were holy rabbis in those days, the old rabbis. So the Rebbe was 14 years old, can you imagine? He decided he's going. So you way out, He didn't tell anybody where he's going, so he has to, right? He wants to visit some relatives, And listen to this way out thing. The only night that this man was home in his palace, this governor, was Friday night. So the Rebbe cannot travel Friday night. So he went to a little krechme, it's a little inn, which was 2 miles from there. And in Russia in the winter, to walk 2 miles, you were already frozen to death as it is, So he had to go to stay, leave all his stuff in the krechme. And he had so much trouble because everybody was making fun of him, calling him dirty Jew, the whole thing, And everybody was drunk, and he was... But anyway, he was davening, he was singing Chodai in Kabul Shabbos. Because, Shabbos begins there very early, about 3:30 in the afternoon, it's already Shabbos in Russia, night begins early. Then he began walking, and, the Rebbe told the present Rebbe he was mamish, like he was on his last walk, because he was ready to die, because he knew that He might shoot him, you know. Maybe he will, you know. Doesn't matter. So he was coming there, and I don't know if I have a picture here. It was mamish way out, you know, on simply on a physical level, you know. He was just so handsome. I don't know if some of you kids have seen a picture of the old Rebbe, you know. Just like perfect is no word, you know. Perfect of perfect, you know. Just most perfect features in the world, you know. And you know, when he looked at you, you know, he really looked at you, you know, looked into your soul in the deepest depth. Anyway, so the Rebbe started walking, and he arrived there in the palace, you know. And they knew that they're not permitted to let the Jew in, you know. But somehow the people at the gates were just, I was thinking, a boy of 14, and you have to realize one thing, in those days, you know, little Rebelach, you know, children of Rebbes would wear like a little fur hat, you know. It's not like a Russian fur, it's a special fur hat for Shabbos. Rebbe was always Shabbos day. So he came. Boy of 14. They said, are you Jewish? Yes, I'm a Jew. And they said, do you know that he will shoot any Jew? He said, in fact, he has a rifle in his room. Any Jew who will come, he'll shoot. So the Rebbe says, I know, but I want to see him. You know, so they let him through. They thought, okay, you'll shoot him. What can you do? So the Rebbe walked in there, and you know, this governor, you know, even such a low creature, he was completely taken by that, you know. A boy of 14, you know, comes in, he says, I'm a Jew, and I came to talk to you about my brothers. So he picked up the rifle, you know. Well, then he looked at him, you know, put it on the table. He says, can't shoot you. And then the wife of the governor, you know, she says, what a handsome boy, you know. She says, unbelievable. I didn't know the Jews have those kinds of kids, you know. So then, anyway, so she says, can we invite you, you know, to eat with us? He says, no, you know, I only eat kosher, but can you give me some tea? You know, I'm just frozen to death anyway. So the most unbelievable thing is, not only this governor, you know, undecreed his decree, he became one of the greatest friends, you know, of the Jews, you know, just to change. You see, most of those people never seen a Jew before, you know, so they just imagine they have horns, you know. But he was just so taken. But, you know what? Tremendous, you know, 14 years old, and he could have had 10,000 reasons not to go. Let all the rabbis go, let all the people go. And it was not even his district, it was not even his state. Anyway, you know, the truth is, if in Russia the Jews are so strong, it's so much because of Lubavitch, really, you know. You know, fire, you know, really fire. How much fire? You know, the Rebbe's father, you know, the first Purim, you know, when the Russians took, they said, you know, it was like at the end of the war, they said first of all, any religious assembly is death penalty. And especially against Lubavitch, they were so strong. So they said, when his father was still living, so they said, if anybody comes Purim for the holiday to celebrate, we'll shoot them. And they meant it, you know. So, what's Chassidim? They got to celebrate it forever, you know. So they came one by one, you know. They sneaked in, and then I don't know Lubavitch, you know, it's very strong. The Rebbe talks to us, and then a maimah is mamish like really Torah from heaven, you know. Like we really believe, like it's mamish like the gates of heaven are open, and he talks to us, you know. And the thing is, when the Rebbe says a maimah, everybody's standing, you know. And the Rebbe talks, but he doesn't talk. He mamish sings it, you know, because anything which comes from heaven, you cannot just talk. It has to be, you have to sing it, you know. And it's a very special melody, like you know, it's just a little melody, but this is the way the melody that the Rebbe was saying. And like for instance, he would say, you know, something like this, and the Baal Shem Tov says, you know, what it really gets into you, you know, it's really very strong. So before he started saying the Maimah, he says, would you please open the windows? So Chassidim said, you know, Gewalt, we're afraid, you know. He says, on Purim, you know, when we celebrate that there's no evil in the world, what are you afraid of? You know? What are you afraid of? So they opened the windows. And so everybody got on their feet and started saying, remember what evil did to the world, you know. Because Purim, it's a whole thing, you have to wipe out evil from the world. Remember there was evil, you have to wipe it out. Saying very holy things. Suddenly the doorbell rang, and suddenly they saw they're completely surrounded by soldiers, you know. So the last Rebbe, you know, the one who passed away today, anyway, he said, Father, you know, he says, please, we are surrounded by soldiers. So he says to him, he says, you know, he is very strong, he says, don't worry, he says, they'll be annihilated in a minute, you know. Let them come in, you know. So just ignore them. So the Chassidim, you know, it was a very hard test, you know. Really to ignore them, not just really ignore them. Don't exist in your mind, you know. So the Rebbe continued to say the Maimah, you know. And the soldiers came into the room and surrounded the Chassidim with rifles. And the Rebbe kept on talking for about an hour. After the thing was over, you know, the officer said, you know, I'm sorry we disturbed you. They walked out. It's very strong, you know. Because I was talking before about fearing God, you know. It's very strange, you know. Fear, any fear in the world means like you're contracted, right? You're becoming small, right? But if you really fear God, you know, if you know really it's only one God, you know, not fear like a gun. Being aware of His presence, you have absolutely no fear, you know. But I tell you one thing, you know, the Rebbe was paralyzed, he was so weak. And Rosh Hashanah, you know, when it comes to blowing the shofar, the doctor says only 10 people are permitted to be there. Because, you know, it was not permitted to be in the same room moment than there's 10 people. So I remember it was really the greatest thing in my whole life. My brother and I, let's say for instance, there were hundreds of people, everybody wanted to be the first 10, you know. So anyway, this one Rosh Hashanah, it's really the greatest miracle in the world. I think I was 46. So my brother and I, we woke up 5 in the morning, we went to the mikveh. Okay, we are there by the door already, you know. Although the Rebbe only opens the door 11 o'clock to daven, but we were there already 5:30, you know. You never know, those hours might keep you going for a lifetime, you know. Okay, more people come. Everybody wants to be there. And even just to stand by the door and push a little bit is also good for your soul, you know. Because you stop being anybody, you know. Great rabbis, which everybody's there, you know. You stop being you. You're just there, you just want to hear the blowing of the shofar from the Rebbe. So about 11 o'clock, the Rebbetzin, you know, she was really like a queen, you know. Really, queen is no word, but really a queen, you know. Like the holiness of the queen, you know, the Rebbe's wife, you know. She opened the door, you know. But the moment she opens the door, you stop pushing. You can't push in her presence. You can't push in the Rebbe's presence, you know. So she says, you know, I'm so sorry, you know, my husband is sick, and I can only permit 10 people, you know. So the first 10 people walk in. And it was my brother and me also. It was the greatest thing in the world. We were standing right there, you know. 10 people. So, unbelievable, you know. So the Rebbe, you know, before blowing up the shofar, you know, like, all the Rebbes did it like this, you know, on Rosh Hashanah, on New Year's, you know, everybody gives them a little piece of paper, you know, and writes down their mother's name, their name and their mother's name. That's all, you know. Because the moment you say what you need, you're making it really small. You just write down your name. You want to be remembered. You know. Thousands of little pieces of paper. So the Rebbe had a thing. All the Baal Shem Tov's pupils had this thing. They would take all the pieces of paper, put it on the table. You know, it was like in a big envelope. You know, and put their head on it, put the prayer shawl over it, towels, and put their heads on it, and then blow the shofar, But this was the greatest thing in the world, The Rebbe was crying, but not just crying, Again, it's not the one soul crying. You could mamish hear the crying of all the people had put their papers and you could hear them cry, Thousands of people. And even the people who didn't put their paper in. Can you imagine he was so weak that he couldn't move his tongue and he was completely weak? Can you imagine if any of you kids know Eastern Parkway and all the windows were closed? Half a block away you could hear the Rebbe cry. Gewalt, I remember, the last, he passed away, Yud Shvat. The last Simchas Torah was 1950. And really, it was the greatest miracle in the world. Again, Simchas Torah, Everybody wanted to be there. Nobody knew it's the last time he was talking to us. But somehow, my brother and I think I'd managed to get in there, Greatest miracle in the world. And Mamish, my brother and I, were Mamish standing behind his chair, And he was so weak. The doctor says he's not. He spoke to us for about 8 hours. Unbelievable. And the Rebbetzin, you know what the story is? The Rebbetzin, his wife, never lost her hearing because at one time when she had 3 daughters, so at childbirth of the last daughter, she lost her hearing, so she couldn't hear at all. So during the week, at least you could write down for her. She didn't want to wear a hearing aid on. Maybe they didn't have it. But anyway, so during the week, you would write down to her what you have to say, and she would answer you. But on Yom Tov, on holidays, when you don't write, it was very hard to communicate with her, And she was so concerned with her husband, was really the holiest couple in the world, So the Rebbetzin, I remember every few minutes the Rebbetzin would open the door, and she would say, please, tell my husband that he has to rest, So someone came back and said, Rebbe, the Rebbetzin is asking the Rebbe, please, Rebbe says, he says, there's so much I have to tell you, Tell her I didn't say anything. I didn't tell everything I have to say, Later on we realized it was really the last time he spoke to us, for 8 hours, And the strangest thing is, he passed away Shabbos morning. And the craziest, not crazy, in the holiest way in the world, Friday morning, he gave out the mimer, because he couldn't talk, so he would write it down, And this mamish like his last will, So Shabbos morning, everybody was learning it. And let's say, for instance, all the people, and we didn't find out that he passed away until after Shabbos, But Shabbos morning, mamish. And the whole thing is really of the great day to come, goes without saying. So there's a passage, I just want to tell you a little bit, then we have a little feast of it. Give me this, because this moment, give me this here. You see, and the Rebbe today who took over a year after, by Rebbes is always a thing that you begin where the other one left off. You got to continue, when Yaakov our father Jacob, blessed the 12 tribes, he says, it says, the last word of Yaakov was Zois. Zois means this, Like he put them on the level of this, It's very strong. Most people don't know what this is, This. To point with your finger, this is it. They're really having a clear mind, this is it, So Yaakov Avinu left off as a word Zois, So Moshe Rabbeinu, the one who blessed us, after, says V'zois habrocha shebayach Moshe. He began with Zois, So since that time, it's always a thing that you always begin with the other one left off. So the present Rebbe, when he became a Rebbe, was mamish gewalt, So he began where the Rebbe left off. So the last Rebbe started. This is the last thing he said. It says, Basi Legani, it's a passage in the Song of Songs. It says, I came to the garden of my sister, my bride. So, what does it mean? That means someday God will come back to this world, because where is the garden? What's God's garden? This world, right? This world. Because the Medrash says, Gani is called Ganuni, it's very beautiful. Garden comes from the word Ganuni, means my meeting place. Say something very deep. Imagine, if two people love each other. Let's say they met on a certain street corner, right? Say 20 years ago, let's say, It looks to everyone like a street corner. Nobody knows, But for those two people, it's tremendous, right? Nobody knows, It's so holy that nobody knows, but just those two know, right? So the thing is, there's like a little secret between God and every little human being in the world. Everybody met God at one time. You met God at one time. And this little place where you met, then you come back, and then the other one isn't there, It's heartbreaking, right? So you stand there and you wait until the other one is coming back. So sometimes we are coming there and God isn't there. Sometimes God is coming there and we aren't there. So it says in the Song of Songs that on the great day we'll meet again on the same place. The very same place. So now he starts saying, what happened, when did we stop meeting, So this is, he says like this, because the truth is, you see, before God created the world, there was only God in this world, right? So then when God created the world, in order to make room for the world, remember the Torah of the void a little bit, Shabbos, that, so to speak, imagine if I want to teach, let's say if Einstein wants to explain to me his theory. So he has to make his mind very small, right? Because he cannot open his mind and let the whole theory shine into man. I'm too small, right? So he has to make it very, very small. But then slowly I grow up and I learn, and then finally I get to that light which he wanted to show me. So the thing is that, so God created the world, right? But the world isn't on the level yet that God can shine his whole light into us, So God made his light very small, like the little children. But then we have to grow up, And then finally, slowly, we're getting back to the great light, the way it was before God created the world. But then, this is one of the holiest things, this Lubavitcher Rebbe's father said. If the whole idea would be just to come back to the same light like it was before, so what's the use of our creation? That's the same light again, So the idea is, he says, from that you must deduct that it has to be that, although how is it possible, but it is possible, that we are coming to a greater light. Right? It's not that, again, after we go through the whole thing, after we'll make this world good again, that God's light will shine in this world like before it was created. That means it will be even a deeper revelation. Like, how is it possible more than God, That means, how is it possible the whole world, there was nothing but God, and after the great day there'll be nothing but God? But it has to be deeper. It has to be deeper. So this is the whole mind. How do we get to that deeper? How do we get to this light which is even deeper? So he starts saying something very strong, because the whole thing, every person has to build a little holy temple, because as long as the holy temple is, because where do we meet God? Everybody meets God in the holy temple. Where's the holy temple? Everybody has a little holy temple in his heart, and this holy temple is destroyed. And how do you rebuild it? And it's very strong. You rebuild it with little ztz'l. The holy temple was built with wood, which Yaakov Avinu, it's a whole thing. Yaakov Avinu planted a tree in Israel, and he took the wood with him to Egypt. And then when we left Egypt, we took that wood and we made the little holy temple. And this is called ztz'l. Wood of shittim, shittim. But shittim in Hebrew actually comes from the word foolishness. That means wood of foolishness. So he goes very strong. He says there's two kinds of foolishness. there's a foolishness which is below our understanding, and there's some kind of holy foolishness which is above my understanding. How do you build a holy temple? You build a holy temple if you reach the level of this holy foolishness. Because you have to be a holy fool to be a servant of God. Real holy fool. The holiest fool in the world. And where's the holy temple? What is it standing on? What are the four walls of the holy temple? The four walls of the holy temple are this holy foolishness. Because evil is the greatest foolishness in the world, right? How do you fight evil? The other way around, right? You want me to be a fool below my understanding? I'm going to be a fool beyond my understanding. Have you ever seen there's some people, it's very deep. Everything they understand, they understand it deeper than they understand. This is a level of foolishness, right? Some people only know God with their mind. 1 and 1 is 2, right? They know there's one God. And some people are so completely given to it that it reaches deeper than my mind, right? It's on the level of foolishness, right? I don't understand it anymore. But I understand it so much that it's beyond my understanding. And then he says something very strong. One little piece of wood is called keresh, How do you say keresh? How would you say this wood here when it's standing like this? What?
Panels of wood?
What?
Panels?
How do you call it? Panels? No. Okay, how do you call this one piece of wood standing like this?
Board.
A board, right. A board. So a board of wood is called in Hebrew keresh. Now this is very strong. I told you this 2 weeks ago. If any of you kids remember, keresh means a board, and keresh also the same letters like sheker, like a lie, and kesher, like tie to it. How do you build a board for the holy temple if you get out of sheker, of lies, and you get to kesher, you tie to it? Remember that what Shem Tov says, every word you know, not only you have to know it, you have to tie yourself to it. To tie yourself to it is on the level of foolishness. If I'm tied to something, even if I understand I should leave, I can't, I'm tied to it. Right? So you build a holy temple